All right, so with our handsome Mr. Teddy, he just went out for a little potty break. And of course, it's definitely more mud season now, even though we have the pea stone. Obviously, underneath it, it's a little bit swampy because it's been a bit rainy and things have been starting to defrost. So for the handsome guy, I did set him up with the dog bed, the raised cot, and I wanted to see if he could rock a little bit with his place. He's been doing a really great job with playtime with his friends. Sorry if he and his playmates come home a little bit dirty. They've been having a really good time playing. I try to keep the potty outdoor time a little shorter because it is a bit swampy, just because it is a mushy day. But obviously you're not having fun unless you're getting to be a dirty dog. So right now we're just warming up with some place behaviors, building up value and being stationary. So with Mr. T, he does have a chew. So it is like a beef cheek. These ones are, again, digestible. There are a lot of products out there that are not the greatest. Rawhide is one of them. Rawhide is, again, not digestible. The pieces that are going in are going to be the pieces that have to come out. And what ends up happening with rawhide, it's the byproduct of the leather or sort of leather industry, for example. So sometimes some of the products have already been treated with yucky chemicals and have been then deemed not a great option for shoes or whatever the other item might be for the end product. So since hide has very little nutrition and is typically the part of the animal that most animals wouldn't be consuming, it's technically very hard on them to break down. So with rawhide, to get them to want to chew on it, a lot of times they add preservatives or flavors and dyes, but the product is best to just be avoided. There's many dogs that have sadly choked on rawhide because there's these knotted ends at times, and they get them soft and they start chewing and then sometimes try to swallow it and it becomes an obstruction either in the throat or down the digestive system. So I highly recommend to stay away from rawhide. Some dogs do okay with what are called collagen chews. Still, hit or miss for some. Pig's ears, I feel like, are a very quick snack, almost like potato chips, but some puppies will try to also get them squishy and swallow those whole. So just because there might be some products that work for one family or one pup does not mean it's always the right fit for yours. So this beef cheek used to be about this big, so like close to 12 or 14 inches, and it's probably like a good, 2 to 3 inches in diameter. So it does have some good heft to it. You can find them, I think, a lot of times now at some other pet stores. You can also find beef cheek chews on Amazon. So whatever vendor or, company you'd like to go to, feel free. They do sometimes come in multi-packs, but I would recommend that it's beef or buffalo cheeks, and you want to stay away from rawhide. There are what are called no-hide chews, and some dogs do okay with that, but I would still supervise anytime your dog has something they can chew and break down and then try to ingest, would be something I'd want to supervise, because as your puppy's going through different life stages, right now he's losing some of those teeny weeny little baby teeth that don't even match him for the size he is right now. It's kind of adorable. So as he's going through different developmental milestones, he's going to have moments where he's losing teeth. He almost has no teeth, and then he's going to be growing those adult teeth in. So for the beauties while they were wrestling, I know it sounds really gruesome, but a lot of times they end up getting a little bit bloody in their teeth because they either fall out or their gums are bleeding. And then sometimes when they're playing, they get a little bit messy. So of course, poor Miss W, Miss Winnie, being a pretty much white lab, I took a little washcloth and cleaned her up a little bit, because nobody's hurt. It's just those baby teeth are all falling out and it gets a bit messy. So for him right now, we're just working a little bit with this place behavior while spewing about some chew item options. Nice. Two, I know he's been liking his buffalo horn. If you ever feel like he starts to lose interest in some of his chews, be it hooves to buffalo horns to antlers, those ones you can soak in low sodium chicken or beef broth or a concoction that you would like, but without adding heat. So typically I just put it in a Tupperware container or put it in a Ziploc bag and let it sit for a day or two. And then now, because it's a bit of a porous material, the flavor of the broth will go into that item. So it can like reinvigorate some of those chews again for your puppy. He's like, and I've had it with you. So he's grabbing a drink. So when working a bit with this place behavior, I know he's been really loving using his target here and in class. And I can't remember if you guys had mentioned you do have a dog cot. Again, if not, no big deal. But I know for some of them, having this visual where you could be like, okay, I need to tend to the baby, or I need to do this other thing, you could then help him by going and targeting his target spot. He's going to tank up with some water because, of course, these babies have never had enough. So we'll let him have his little drink. And then in a moment, I'll see if I can get a little recall from the handsome boy. So close. He's like, nope, still going. Teddy, come. Here he comes. What a good job. Oh, he's like, oh, the toy. Good job checking in with me. It's very nice. Oh, a little bit of water coming out of those jowls. That's normal. I know you guys probably have like a slime rag wherever you go in each room just in case to help out the poor gentleman. Because, of course, being the St. Bernard in there, he's going to have some swampy face moments. So, but let's see. Ready? We're going to go back to our bed. Nice. So we'll get that little sit from him. Yes. So if, again, we start off in a sitting position, but your puppy does better in a down, I would typically recommend to work the position they're going to have the easiest time with. So we're going to rock that down. You could also multitask in the sense that if, let's say, his teeth are bugging him, or he really is feeling a little bit, like he's got more energy than not, but he's having a hard time settling, I find giving them chew options, almost like pacifiers. You're trying to help them do this instead and occupy them mentally or physically, as opposed to getting up and getting more into mischief with things maybe they shouldn't be playing with. So right here, I'm going to tell him to stay. So even though he's enjoying that lovely chew, intermittently, I'm going to go back and reinforce him for just being there. This can also be helpful too if your puppy, for example, sometimes tends to think that we coming near could be the end of fun or something confrontational or, overwhelming. So this is, again, still I'm reinforcing the stay, but I'm also doing a bit with technically at the same time the treat and retreat game. So while he's enjoying his chew, I'm just making it fun to have the crazy lady come pop over and give a little tidbit for hanging out. She's doing a real nice job. Yes. So you'll see that too throughout the weeks, the babes are getting much more comfortable with certain skills. There might be some that are very novel. So I know, like, for example, earlier with Mr. B, we worked a bit with some of the equipment, like the agility ladder and a few other items. Nice. He's doing beautiful. So let's say he's doing a really nice job hanging out on his little dog bed and he's enjoying his little snack. I'm going to go ahead and also start wiggling some of the items on the shelf and see if you can go ahead and start to feel, comfortable with some distractions. Nice. He's like, what are you doing? Yes. He's doing a very good job. Too, I know we have no class next week because I'm away on vacation, but I will email everybody again just as a reminder. But I do want to bring in, I have a scratch board. So if you're not familiar with a scratch board, I have done it with a couple other of the previous doggy day school students. My brain's melting today. And because for a lot of babes, clippers can be a little bit spooky, either because they're not as comfortable because we haven't practiced, but also because when you use nail clippers for some dogs, the crunch or like the sound and the pressure for some is really overwhelming. If you're not as comfortable doing certain things for your dog when it comes to grooming or handling skills, I would definitely take a peek-see over the cooperative care with Deb Jones. She does have a closed Facebook group for members, and it's free, so you don't have to pay anything. But all of the participants tend to share really great resources or videos of even themselves with their dogs practicing cooperative care. So cooperative care is getting your babe to be a participant in the things they may have to do down the road, be it vet visits, to handling skills, to grooming. So that way your dog feels that because they have the option to say, like, this is too challenging, or I want to be a participant in it, they feel more like there's agency involved, which means your dog gets less overwhelmed with the things. A lot of times with typical vet visits. And no offense, again, sometimes I know we have to medically do things and I get it. But there could be moments where how we do those setups will either make a dog that feels much more comfortable at the vet's office or a lot less comfortable. And typically the dog or cat's behavior will start to increase and get more and more scary from their perspective and therefore more reactive. So remember, for the dog, you can't be like, hey, I'm giving you a shot because I want you to stay healthy. They might just think, oh my gosh, I'm getting held down. All of a sudden, I'm separated from my family. Maybe if they've never even been muzzle trained and one of those gets slapped on your puppy, it can really ruin a lot of other skills for down the road. So I'm a huge advocate of doing muzzle training for all puppies and dogs because it's almost as getting just as comfortable as wearing a collar or a body harness or a leash. Because if your puppy, let's say, does now have an injury or does need to be restrained, and these really bad situations are the only time a muzzle gets strapped on, your puppy is going to now pair this loss of control with the feelings of negative and pain and sort of being bombarded. And now on top of it, the muzzle was also included. So muzzle training is something I recommend for all of the students from puppies to adults, because if, let's say, your puppy felt safe trying and working with a muzzle, that means that if you did have to use it in a safety situation or an injury, it's not going to be one more thing that adds more stress to that poor dog's setup. I'm so sorry. Tickle. My throat's a little dry. He's doing a very nice job with his little stay. We'll see if I can grab my drink and we'll see if he can hold his lovely stay position. Distractions, real world. Here we go. Sorry, when the heat is rocking in here, it gets rather dry. And of course, I forgot to grab my cough drops, which are around the corner in my bag. So that was really nice. What a brilliant boy. So obviously, as you're building in for some of these behaviors, the other option, actually, I'm going to grab a chair and I'm going to see if I can work in a little bit as if you were practicing at home at your dinner table, or working it, for example, with your couch or whatever it might be. So let's say, for example, he's like, oh, that seems interesting. He's like, new thing. So let's say we're going to try, and again, no worries if he breaks, we're just going to reboot it. So let's say, for example, this could be, for example, the dinner table. This could be you wanting to sit at your desk and work. It could be you sitting at your couch, whatever it might be. So a lot of puppies, when we go to sit down, they might think it's an engagement for engagement with us. For some puppies, looking low on the floor kind of looks like an engagement for play or come visit or let's, roughhouse or do something fun. So sometimes as you're changing the way you look, for a lot of puppies, remember for his stay position right now, he hasn't generalized this to the point where, for example, me sitting and me standing might not feel like the same skill. So right now we're doing it where we're working the stay. And again, if you throw in the stay, you falling off, he's like, I don't know where I'm going. You good? I'm going to grab his little chew toy just in case. Here you go, my lovey. He's like, falling off the dog bed does happen sometimes. So with this gorgeous guy, remember that generalizing of skills takes a lot of good reps and practice, but also we have to start adding different criteria to the same exercise. So if the level of difficulty in the sense of distractions, duration, and distances always stayed the same, that's going to be where your puppy's behaviors and skills fall apart. So right here, we're rocking this beautiful stay. I'm feeding this handsome guy for holding still. So then my first step would be heading towards my couch or my table. And then for him holding his position, I'm going to go back and feed him. So sometimes this is, again, a little bit of shaping where you're building up to the big boy skill. It just didn't start there. So if, let's say, he has no idea what to do when you go to sit at a place like of your own, like your couch, you're going to want to start off first, by working him in the bubble you'd like to practice. And then maybe we start off by going and I'm by my chair. He holds it for a couple seconds. And then the food is stuck in his jowl. He's still chewing. And then we can go back and feed this handsome guy. Yes. I know, what a rainy, yucky day. So we go back to my chair. So I haven't sat down yet. So we're trying to build up this concept that me moving towards the thing doesn't trigger him getting up. So if at this level he was getting up, I'd maybe move the chair closer and I'd build in more duration with a little bit of distance here and there. So like, let's say he's busy chewing. I'm going to try and sit. I'm going to go ahead and stand up, which is really great for us. So we're going to work some really nice up and down, exercises for our physique. So again, he's rocking that. You can even do some squats. Don't even actually sit down, just hover and then go back. So sometimes you could start off that small. Nice job, sir. So then you could try a little bit where you hang out. I know he's technically multitasking where he's got his chew item. So now this doesn't seem as big of a deal to go hang out there. You could, if you've got good aim, technically toss some food at your puppy. Just make sure it gets on the dog bed so he's not constantly getting up to go retrieve those snacks. So now you could be sitting, maybe you're doing some work at your computer, maybe you're sitting down to lunch, whatever it might be. But I wouldn't go and wait for the moment you'd like to have this happen during like your Zoom meeting and now magically your dog's going to hopefully work their place behavior. Definitely rehearsing it before you need it is going to be really crucial. So like, let's say again, I might get up one more time. I'm going to go back and feed this beautiful boy. What a smart man. Toss in some goodies at him. I'm going to go back to my chair and I'm going to sit down and relax. He's like, that's not too shabby. He's like, I'm hungry. So I'm going to go back. He's like, that sounds great. And feed him for this. So, but if you're ever trying to add in new criteria to your exercises, think to yourselves, again, why would the puppy somehow magically understand that it's still the same thing, even though I've changed the way it appears? So if you're finding your puppy's really struggling with something, a lot of times we haven't really helped them generalize the skill. So they really only think the way it can happen, like I mentioned a little bit earlier with Mr. B, is literally right in front of you, and that's where your sits have always happened. How could he do a sit from 10 feet away while you're facing the opposite direction? So verbal cues are a lot harder for your puppies to master than visual. So if your puppy does great job with hand signals, oh, he says, how about I come visit? So let's say he gets a little excited. He's not in trouble. I might go, ready? Bring him back onto his bed. And we're going to go back into our down. Yes. I'll set him up again with his disgusting chew toy. Ugh, yum, yum. And so like, let's say again, we struggled for a second. I'm going to tell him to stay. And now this time I'm going to lower the criteria. So lowering the criteria would be maybe I don't go into a sitting position. Maybe I shorten the time frame between each interval to build up value and again, being stationary. And I know he's of course facing me. He's so much cuter the other direction. I'm so sorry. You get to watch his caboose. Funny noises from the building. Yes. But if when you're practicing and your puppy falters and they're not doing so hot, you do not have to end on the training note you were hoping on. So what I mean by that is if let's say every time I wanted to sit down, he constantly got up and I really just wanted him to stay there, you might be ruining the setup because you keep trying to do it when your puppy's already saying, I can't do it right now. So again, he's staying, I might do a little hover and that was really nice and we'll go back to feeding. So, but if let's say you always want to end on the note you were hoping for, the problem with that is then he's like, oh, this is really hard. Is that then sometimes you're making it turn into sort of a difficult situation where no one's having a good time and we're getting frustrated. So I'd highly recommend if you're starting to lose your patience and the dog is really giving you a challenging moment, he's probably also very confused and having a hard time too. So when in doubt, just take a break and just give him something to chew on and you can just walk away and take a pause. But forcing a situation to get your point across is a really great way to prove to the dog that when they're having a hard time, we get even more unpredictable and uncomfortable and at times something they don't want to be near. So are we turning ourselves, he's like, I just keep dropping it, into a teacher that the student wants to be around? Or are we the teacher that the student's like, oh, not that class again, and they'd rather avoid? So make sure that we're creating these good associations with learning, the environment, novel environments, spaces, people, sights and sounds. This doesn't mean to be, for example, intimate with all those things. So I know we had mentioned, going out to a parking lot or an open space and watching the world pass you by while you've got a chew item is a great option. You would want to be careful that it's not a place where it has off-leash dogs, because we don't want our puppy to feel safe and comfortable doing something on a target mat or vegging, and all of a sudden here comes this random dog to come bombard him, especially if he's got a chew item or lick item. So make sure, for safety reasons, we're picking zones where our puppies can be successful, but the environment won't set up our puppies to have potentially trauma or negative experience, or something might linger for down the road. So, but maybe what we'll do is we'll give Mr. T a break from this. He was doing a really good job with these stays and with me including this harder step for novelty and for distraction's sake. He says this feels great on his poor little baby teeth. So, but we'll give him a little breather. I'm going to give him a couple extra bonus bits for being such a brilliant boy. Nice job, sir. And then we'll give him a little break from this one. But that was really nice. He's like, where'd you go?